Hi, this is Stephanie Stock, President of Ohio Advocates for Medical Freedom and advocate for conservative policy and the protection of our constitutional liberties. Welcome to Stephanie Stock Straight Up. Today, I'm kind of just doing a short little bit here. I just want to go over a little bit that we saw in the hearing from the Data Center Commission testimony this week. There was some very specific questions asked by Representative Heidi Workman to the director of the Ohio EPA. And I'd like to just take a minute to run that video. Let's see what she asked and what he had to say, and then let's break that down a little bit, what it actually means.
Because the publicity or the public narrative that's out there right now is that the Ohio EPA was considering allowing the output of chemicals and toxic solutions from these data centers into our public water supply. I guess my question is, how would you respond to that? How do we correct that narrative? And what is your recommendation for trying to kind of clear those waters?
The NPDES permitting, we have over 1,500 of those that have been issued in Ohio today for all kinds of businesses and industries. So some of the narrative, certainly what we saw in some of the comments, was that this was some radical departure from permitting that happens in Ohio and across the country all the time. The proposal is not. So a data center potentially could discharge to a stream, a river, a lake today, as can other businesses. So not all of Ohio and not every piece of property has access to a public water system or to a municipal sewer system. So the NPDES permit is structured exactly to allow that. So what gets missed is it's a regulated discharge. It is not a free-for-all. And any discharge may not reduce aquatic habitat, aquatic life, recreation opportunities, et cetera. So it really gets into potentially the body of water that may be discharged to for any of those permits. What would be discharged to that water, and can that particular body of water handle that? So it is a very much case by case based on what's happening, but it was not, in and of itself, not anything unique from what we do today.
Well, when you listen to what he says, he basically says, we already allow for that. This is pretty common in industry. We make accommodations for people. This is sort of just status quo, which is fascinating. So he didn't say, no, we're not doing that. He's saying, oh, we're going to make that exception for data centers as well. I'm going to go ahead and read you just this little tidbit here about the framework around this. So under state law currently, the Ohio EPA can legally bypass strict water protections and allow an industry, including a data center, to allow water standards if they determine that the economic expansion, in this case, the influx of massive data center developments, outweigh the local environmental degradation. So here we have, and I'm sure the medical freedom community can understand this one, right? The benefits outweigh the risks. Well, I don't know how people that living in those communities feel when these chemicals are being dropped and discharged into their water after they're used. Now, most of the data centers, the older ones, are not operating on a closed loop system, and they will argue that a closed loop system is safer as far as water consumption, which is true. However, closed loop systems require a lot of chemicals. And so the follow-up question from Representative Workman was, do any of these chemicals, and she specifically mentioned forever chemicals, affect our water? Will they have an effect on our waters, lakes, and streams?
Is there a risk of forever chemicals being infused into our public water supply, streams, lakes, anything of the sort?
Through the chairs, Representative Workman, data centers have not been identified as a source of the PFAS, the forever chemicals, either in Ohio or by the United States Environmental Protection Agency.
What is fascinating here is that instead of the director of the EPA saying, yes, those are harmful chemicals, And no, we're not regulating those. He simply stated that those chemicals are not currently on the radar or being monitored by the EPA. So essentially, forever chemicals that are used, they are very much used in data centers because that's what's required for maintaining the cooling systems for computers to stay cool so they don't shut down all the data center computers. So for him to come out and openly say, no, that's not on our radar. Apparently, they're not required at the state level or the federal level to monitor that. That's going to come on the legislature to make that decision whether they're going to allow our water to be protected. But not only that, I went beyond that to see, well, what other things doesn't the EPA cover? Well, they don't cover glycols. Glycols are essentially antifreeze. Okay, they have to use that in the data center closed loop systems as well. So guess what? Ohio EPA, there's no regulations for glycols being regulated on data centers. So that discharged water contains forever chemicals, not monitored by the EPA. Glycols, not monitored by the EPA. And also, he made a comment about, well, we worry about the aquatics, right? Will it affect the aquatics? Well, you know what affects aquatics? The water temperature. And the water temperature in these things can be discharged as high as, I believe, like 102 degrees. That's not what fish swim in. We might like the hot tub in 102, but not too many bass or other types of fish want to go hot tubbing. So the fact that they do monitor the heat levels of the water in the facility, but they don't have a requirement for the temperature when that discharge water leaves the plant. So where does this leave us, Ohio? We have this growing narrative that any concerns we have are Chinese propaganda. That's so cute. And we have a legislature that's just now starting to learn about the processes. And unfortunately, they're not really getting a clear picture from our own EPA. Instead of saying, we don't regulate this stuff right now, no, these chemicals aren't safe for water, but we don't have anything in place to require us to regulate that. Why don't you guys pass laws that will require regulations on these things so we can protect our water? That's not what they're saying. They're just saying, no, we're just doing the permits like we always do. It's terribly concerning. It's terribly concerning. And I will be having Stephen Petty come on my podcast soon. I hope early next week. I want to go over in depth all of these issues. We had a Maha Caucus meeting this morning, brought him in as a presenter, and he was able to talk to several of the Maha Caucus members about the concerns with regulating the water and what are the steps for Ohio to make sure that if we're going to have these data centers coming in, that we are protecting our water resources. So I will be having him on to talk more about this so that you guys as citizens can hear what he was talking about with the legislators, and also so that you'll have a clear picture of what kind of chemicals we're looking at here, what kind of regulations and water cleaning systems would need to be in place for these data centers to even operate in a way that would make us feel comfortable or safe to even drink the water. Okay. So I will be letting you guys know when he'll be coming on. Hopefully it'll be early next week. He's very busy because he's working on a project in East Palestine right now. So anyways, we want to come back to this, but I wanted to address those two questions from Representative Workman, because I thought that was very upsetting the way that was handled. And I think it should give us all some real insight into the level of oversight that we're getting from our own Ohio Environmental Protection Agency. And I am not some kind of a lefty crazy person who, wants to put turbines up and run solar panels on everything. But I am a person who drinks water. Okay. And I have children that drink water, and I know everybody that's watching this drinks water as well. So if we are not going to take care of our water for ourselves now and for generations to come, we need to climb up some serious butts right now in the legislature and make sure that these issues are going to be handled. If they're going to continue pushing forward with these data centers, they absolutely have to be run in a responsible way that protects citizens. So more to come on this. Really want to take a deep dive so all of you guys can have all of the facts. It is kind of it is a little bit of a confusing and complicated issue, and I want everybody to understand kind of the difference between the different types of systems, including the closed loop system. So we will cover all of that soon. Questions that you would like to ask Stephen Petty, our specialist, our chemical engineer specialist. He's absolutely brilliant. He also fought back against the masking and debunked all of that insanity. So you guys will really love him. If you have a question that you would like me to bring up on the podcast with Stephen Petty, please drop it in the comments. And I will be happy to bring that to him and make sure that any questions that you guys have can get answered by somebody who is on our side and is very, very educated and absolutely an expert in this area, and also in the area of gas-powered energy. So, which is what a lot of these facilities are using to operate, or they are tapping into our system, one or the other. So anyways, I hope you will tune in for that. Thank you for listening. Talk to you guys soon.